Hey up, Vinyl Monkey here again. Maybe a bit downbeat this one. I'm a bit down myself. I've got a bit of a cold and a throat and cough going on, and also yesterday my football team, my hometown team, Hartlepool United, were effectively relegated from the Football League. This is soccer for anyone who's watching this on the other side of the pond. Our biggest crowd of the season, crunch game against our closest rivals, and we blew it. And it's just it's a real downer. And it's not that we've not had downs before. We've had more downs than ups, similar to the town we live in, really. So it's not that we're not used to it, but still can't hide the disappointment. So anyway, apologies if this is a downbeat video as a result of that, but what I'm going to do is another one of these challenges where I'm waiting to get my act together. I've got a few notes here because there's quite a lot to go through here. This is a challenge that was set by, I think he's called Dylan at Noble Records. He's in the US somewhere. I think he owns a record store. Nice channel about vinyl music. I've first seen it done by Craig, the vinyl record player. That's a great channel, really. He's got his own unique style, very good, very witty, and an emphasis on soul, which I like. But anyway, that's inspired me to have a go. And basically, the challenge is just link 20 albums, start somewhere, move on to through 20 albums, linking them in any way you want, and hopefully, if you can, get back to the beginning again at number 20. So here we go, without further ado. I thought I'd start not quite at random, pretty much at random. This is, I picked someone who's fairly well connected. This is John Cale. This is his album Fear, brilliant album from 1974. And John Cale was obviously a member of the Velvet Underground. And one of the biggest fans of the Velvet Underground was a guy called Jonathan Richmond, who went on to form the Modern Lovers. And then John Cale became Jonathan Richmond's producer. John Cale produced many artists, of course, but one of the first he produced was Jonathan Richmond, and this is Jonathan Richmond and the Modern Lovers, Rock and Roll with the Modern Lovers from 1977. And you probably remember Jonathan Richmond for his single Roadrunner, where he's talking about driving round his hometown, which was Boston. And I was thinking about, what other bands do I know from Boston? And maybe one of my favourite bands from Boston of all time is the Lemonheads. And this is a special edition of their album It's a Shame About Ray from 1992. Absolutely fantastic. Evan Dando, great singer and songwriter. I think they only had about 5 albums, the Lemonheads. I've got them all, but all absolutely fantastic. And this one includes a cover of Mrs. Robinson by, of course, none other than Simon and Garfunkel. And they opened this album with Mrs. Robinson. This is the concert in Central Park from 1981. I think the concert was in 1981. This album might have come out the year after, but it opens with Mrs. Robinson, and it was a huge concert. I think they did it to raise funds for the upkeep of Central Park, and there's all sorts of varied estimates about how many people were there, but there were a few people who've done huge concerts in Central Park, and another one of them, quite a different kettle of fish to Simon and Garfunkel, is Funkadelic, George Clinton's brilliant band Funkadelic, and this is their album from 1978, Hardcore Jollies. Funkadelic, absolutely brilliant sound, a sort of a collective of musicians that played with them and their sort of sister or brother band, Parliament. And one of those players played the keyboards and synthesizers, was a guy called Bernie Worrell, who went on, when I suppose Funkadelic went into sort of abeyance for a little bit. They went into a sort of temporary close down, and he started playing with Talking Heads, and he played with them right through a lot of the 1980s. This is the Talking Heads 1980 album, Remain in Light. Bernie Worrell isn't actually credited on this, and I'm not sure whether he played on it or not. He often wasn't credited with playing. I think there's only one that he is credited on. But anyway, that's by the by. There is a link there somewhere. And this album, Remain in Light, was produced by Brian Eno, and this is Brian Eno's solo album, one of his solo albums, Another Green World, brilliant album. And Brian Eno, of course, was one of the founding members of that fantastic band Roxy Music, and this is their second album, For Your Pleasure, from 1973. And the sort of leader, I suppose, singer, leader, front person of Roxy Music, Brian Ferry, hails from just up the road from me here in the northeast of England, from Newcastle upon Tyne. And perhaps the first famous rock and roll band from Newcastle upon Tyne was the Animals. This is the Animals' debut album from 1964, self-titled, The Animals. And the Animals' bass player was a guy called Chas Chandler, who then went into management and went over to America and found, playing in a cafe over there, the brilliant guitarist and songwriter and singer Jimi Hendrix. And Chas Chandler went on to manage and produce, be involved in the production of Jimi Hendrix, putting together the Jimi Hendrix Experience band, bringing him over to England, and yeah, the rest is history. And this is Jimi Hendrix's third and last, I suppose, studio album, the incomparable Electric Ladyland. Absolutely brilliant, brilliant stuff from 1968. And Jimi Hendrix was actually born in Seattle, and I thought, oh, I wonder if I know any other bands that are from Seattle. And this is a band I know very little about. This is Band of Horses. I think they started off being called just Horses, but these guys are from Seattle. Great band. They're the sort of band that had, you know, it's not soft rock, it's a sort of rock band, but there's a little bit of mild, mellow grunginess in there, and just a little bit of edge. Some lovely, lovely songs. This is their album Mirage Rock from 2012. And this is a really, really nicely produced album, and the producer on this album is I'm going to say legendary. He's very famous. He's produced all sorts of people, from the Rolling Stones to Floyd, I think, didn't he? And lots and lots of people. That's Glyn Johns. And as well as producer, he was also an engineer, and he co-engineered Neil Young's debut album. Sorry, not debut album. One of his first albums, though, Harvest, from 1972. And yeah, Neil Young, Harvest, 1972. No need to say anything about that absolute classic album. But one of Neil Young's real good friends and fellow Canadian was Joni Mitchell. And this is Joni's album, Court and Spark, perhaps their biggest selling, perhaps their most successful album, from 1974. And Joni performed on those also fellow Canadians' last concert, the band, at the last waltz, and performed brilliantly at that concert. And this is the band's album Cahoots from 1971, I think. I haven't written it down. I think it's 1971. And the band, yeah, they were living out in Woodstock. They sort of famously were involved as Dylan's backing band, involved with the Basement Tapes out there in the big pink house and what have you. They were also knocking about, unlikely as it might sound, with Van Morrison at the time out there in Woodstock, and Van actually collaborated on one of the songs, 4% Pantomime, on this album, and co-wrote and sang along with that. Van also obviously appeared in the last waltz. So Van, yeah, known for his collaborations, and this is an absolutely superb album by Van Morrison. This is Duets from 2015. It's perhaps gone under the radar a bit as far as Van Morrison albums go, but this is a series of duets with everybody from George Benson, Gregory Porter, Michael Bublé, Mark Knopfler, Bobby Womack, brilliant stuff, but also includes one with the great Steve Winwood. And this is Steve Winwood's album from 1980, Ark of a Diver. Not my favourite Steve Winwood work. It's got a little bit of sort of 80s synthy sort of production sound in there, which is a bit off-putting for any of you who listen to my other videos. You know I went into a real downer with some of those 80s sounds. But yeah, Steve Winwood, of course, ex of Traffic, and was involved in the formation of one of the first so-called supergroups in 1968-69, went together with Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker from Cream and Rick Gregg from Family. He formed Blind Faith, and this is Blind Faith's only album, self-titled album, from 1969, with a obviously controversial cover. And yeah, Blind Faith, 1969. And while they were touring Blind Faith, they were supported by Delaney and Bonnie, and Clapton was falling out of love with his fellow band members in Blind Faith, and getting more along with Delaney and Bonnie and getting into that sort of stuff. And with some of the members of Delaney and Bonnie, he formed Derek and the Dominoes, and I think went on to produce what I think is some of Clapton's best work on album. This is Layla and other sort of love songs with Derek and the Dominoes. Really nice album. And then some of those members of Derek and the Dominoes, namely Bobby Whitlock, Jim Gordon, Carl Radle, perhaps others as well, were involved with John Lennon, and subsequently, and were involved in his making of this album sometime in New York City, but more specifically the album that sort of went along with this and was released with this, the sort of live album. I think part of it was live at the Lyceum, part of it was in New York with some of the Mothers of Invention, Zappa's band. But these were known as the Give Peace a Chance concerts, and released in 72, but I think the concerts took place between 69 and 71. So yeah, some of the Derek and the Dominoes band playing on those albums. And then this is where the links get particularly tenuous as we get towards the end. So yeah, John Lennon, very outspoken. Not the only outspoken musician going, but another one who's particularly renowned for being outspoken, Lou Reed, who famously said that he thought the Beatles were garbage. But he also famously said that he thought John Lennon's song Mother from his first album was perhaps the greatest song ever written. So yeah, typically contradictory perhaps set of quotes from Lou Reed. And this is Lou Reed's album from 1974, Rock and Roll Animal. This is a live album which is 5 songs, 4 of which are songs, Velvet Underground songs. And of course Lou Reed was, I can't reach it yet, Lou Reed was a founding member of the Velvet Underground with John Cale, back to number 1. So there's my 20 links. When I looked at it, I was a bit disappointed that I hadn't gone into sort of more nether regions and more different sort of types of music from this collection, and I think I may well have another go at this and try and get even more tenuous links to enable me to dig a bit deeper into the collection here. But anyway, that's it for now. Maybe get on with doing a video in a week or so's time. So thanks for watching. Cheers. Ta-ra.